Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another special edition here. I am your host, Matthew Miller. Right there, you see it on screen. You can follow me on Twitter at MatthewMS97. Please go over there and follow me on Twitter. Another week in the SEC, another SEC power ranking. Let's do it. The SEC is off the rails, just like most of college football. Listen, there's a giant jumble of teams in here. If you have a debate about, I'm fine with. I didn't really know how to rank them, but I did it because I have to, and it's going to be interesting. It was a very interesting week. Number 16. Didn't think I'd be doing this year. Oklahoma. And it gives me great joy to say this is not clickbait. This team is trash. Their defense is overrated. It's not as good as their fans think. Their offense is abysmal. I'm talking abysmal. I'm talking old service academy bad, points per game wise, yards per play wise. It is really bad. They have no quarterback. They have no idea what kind of offense or scheme they want to run. I don't even think they really run a certain scheme with Seth Luttrell and those guys over there. It was so bad they had to go back to Jackson Arnold, burn his red shirt. You saw he was pretty angry about that and sad after the game, really didn't know what to think. I wouldn't know what to think either. I have no idea who their starting quarterback is going to be next year. I don't know what their offensive line is going to look like next year, but I know right now it is really bad. It is abysmal. Oklahoma ain't going bowling, folks. This is a 5-7 football team. They will beat Maine this week. After that, I have no clue who they could or will beat. Maybe they go 6-6 and sneak into the Mayo Bowl. Have fun with that, Oklahoma fans. But you have fallen off of grace here, and you can say whatever you want. But Lincoln Riley had you guys in good position, and you kissed his ass goodbye. And honestly, they could both use each other right now because he's not looking too good out in L.A. Number 15 is Mississippi State. And I thought about bringing them up because they've been playing well. They played pretty damn good versus my Texas Longhorns. They played really good versus Georgia. They played really good versus Texas A&M at home, in my opinion. Michael Van Buren is the truth. He is a really good quarterback. So that is something to look forward to if you're a Mississippi State fan. But this year's just going to be a struggle fest. I think the goal this year is to win 3 or 4 games, try to beat Ole Miss at the end of the year. And you may keep going up with this. The highest I could possibly see is 12 for you guys in this power ranking. I almost put them up to this spot. Auburn. If there was ever a meme of someone just pulling out a gun and shooting themselves in the foot, pulling a Plaxico Burress in the club, if you will, that would be the Auburn Tigers. They have no idea how to win football games. They kind of remind me of when Texas went 5-7 their first year, where they had these leads in games and then just consistently beat themselves in the second half of games. This is what this reminds me of. The problem is this is what Hugh Freeze's second year, and they look completely lost. So I don't really know what to think of this team. They have moments where they look good and they could possibly compete with good football teams, and then they look completely lost in certain instances. And you saw that versus Missouri. All across the board, Missouri shot themselves in the foot multiple times, multiple turnovers, multiple chances to give Auburn even more turnovers. They couldn't capitalize with that on offense, and they're just not a good football team right now. It'd be interesting if Hugh Freeze can just hold on for dear life and survive the season, because if they end up going like 4-8, they could fire him. They really could. So I have Auburn at 14, and they could be in a free fall. I don't think they could get to be the worst team in the SEC, but they could be the second worst. Number 13 is Kentucky. After that big win versus Ole Miss, this team has been bad. You lose to Florida. You lose to Vanderbilt. They're just not a good football team. Defensively, they are solid. Offensively, they are not good at all. Brock Vandagriff is not what you paid for. Barry Brown probably wishes he transferred at this point. And they miss Ray Davis, who is doing some work with the Steelers. I don't think he's getting much attention there, but he's sorely missed in Kentucky. I'll tell you that much. We'll see what they do the rest of the year. If they don't become bowl eligible, I think Mark Stoops could be on the hot seat as well. He already won it out, and he's getting paid $10 million a year to win 6 or 7 games, which is good at Kentucky. I'm not clowning that. If you win 6 or 7 games at Kentucky, I think that's the ceiling for Kentucky football. Maybe 8. But this year has been a disappointment, in my opinion. I thought they could go 7-5 or 8-4. And then a team that actually starting to climb, Florida. Florida is getting better week by week. They should have beaten Tennessee. After the debacle at the beginning of the year, no one thought that was going to be the case when they got blown out by Miami. They played really well this week. They destroyed Kentucky. They should have beat Tennessee. They beat Mississippi State the week before their bye week. Solid football team. I think there's a real shot if they upset another team on the schedule that this team could go bowling. I mean, who would have thought that? So solid job by Billy Napier, I need you to win one more because I did take your over win total. So, Billy, my brother, win another game to get to 5. And they'd have to win 2 games to get to 6-6. I think that could happen. I don't know if it will. You do have Florida State, so you should win that game. That should get you to 5. So upset someone, Billy. Upset them. Now, don't upset this team. Any other team upset him, but I'm rooting for him. I like Billy Napier. I think he's a classy guy, but he reminds me a lot of Tom Herman. I don't think he's long for that job, but we will see. Number 11, the most overrated team in the SEC. It is not close. Argue with me, Missouri fans. You ain't a good football team. I rank you 11, and these teams above you I would take on a neutral field over you. Brady Cook is Max Duggan. The offense doesn't know how to get the ball to their best player in Luther Burden. The running game isn't as good as it last year with Cody Schrader. The defense is terrible after losing all those guys to the NFL. Just not a great football team. I said you were going to go 8-4. You'll probably go a little bit better than that because of the schedule. You're not a good football team. You shouldn't be ranked, honestly, but you are. Number 10, I do have South Carolina. This is the quintessential, I don't know what to do with them team. Some weeks they play good on offense. Some weeks they play bad. The only thing consistent about this team is their pass rush. With Kennard and Stewart on the outside, phenomenal players, NFL players, probably top 50 pick NFL players, even if Dylan Stewart came out this year, he's probably a top 50 pick, if not a first-round pick. He's that good at 18 years old. But their offense is just too inconsistent for me to put them any higher. I wish I could put them higher. I said 7-5 before the season. I think there's a chance they hit that. We'll see. Their schedule is pretty difficult. They'd have to upset some teams. I think they could upset A&M in a couple weeks. I would not be surprised by that at all at home. So South Carolina fans, I think you should be confident. This team could easily have beaten Alabama. This team could have easily beaten LSU. They could be on a very special season if those games went differently, but they didn't. So I have them here at number 10. Number 9, I can't believe I have this team at number 9, Alabama. I like Kalen DeBoer. I think he's a good coach. But right now he is putting a square peg into a round hole. He is not running the proper offense for Jalen Milroe. I think certain concepts that he does run in the passing game can help Jalen Milroe and have helped Jalen Milroe. But you should be running the ball with the running backs you have with this ginormous offensive line 35 times a game. Whether that is 5 to 10 with Jalen Milroe design runs and then 20 other runs with the running backs, you got to run the football more, my guy. You have a dominating offensive line when it comes to the run game. You have a freak of an athlete at quarterback that can run the football. You have 2 really good backs. You have to run the football more. Jalen Milroe can pass through the air, but it's better to do off play action and non-obvious passing situations because guess what? If you can run the ball, let's say you get it to 2nd and 4, and then you want to take a play action shot, do it. And guess what? When you take that play action shot, get Jalen Milroe out on the edge so if it's not there, he can just run. They are not scheming well around him right now. This team still has talent. I still think they can recover and make the college football playoff, but this team is not a national championship contender. The pieces just aren't there on the offensive side of the ball with the offense he wants to run, and he's going to continue to run. I'm sorry, I don't think he's going to change very much. And then the defense just isn't that great. So I have Alabama at number 9. Number 8, I have Vanderbilt. Is this team great? No. But I have to show them some respect. They will free fall. They're not beating Texas this week. I've heard that said a lot around the internet. And it's mostly by people that are trolls. They don't actually believe it because I've called them out. I've said, hey, if you believe that, put some money on it. And they don't put money on it because they don't believe it. Vanderbilt's not beating Texas this week. They'll probably end up going 6-6. They're a solid football team. And I'm giving them respect here. But it's 24-14 versus Ball State, and it was tied or Ball State was leading at halftime. Not acceptable. They're a upgraded version of themselves, but they're still not a great football team. But I will put respect on their name for now and put them at number 8. Number 7 is Arkansas. They're kind of similar to South Carolina in my eyes, but they've won the Tennessee game, so I have to give them credit for that. That's why I have them here at 7. The defense has been good, not great. Same with the offense. They're kind of just good across the board. They're not spectacular at anything. Taylor Green is too inconsistent for this team to win serious games versus big teams most of the time. They did win the game versus Tennessee, but I'm talking more of they're not going to beat Georgia. They're not going to beat Texas. They're not going to beat LSU most likely at this point, like that you saw LSU kick the crap out of them. So that's where I am with Arkansas. Number 6, the biggest team. I don't know what to do with this team either. Ole Miss. Like, week to week, what am I getting from this team? I don't believe in Lane Kiffin to win big games that he should. I don't believe in Lane Kiffin to win games that are close versus quality opponents. I don't believe in Jackson Dart at all. I think he's one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the country. I think a lot of these quarterback prospects have been overrated. I think the only 2 I take seriously at this point are Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Everyone else, if you need a quarterback this year, I would not draft, honestly, unless you're willing to sit them for a year or 2. So that's where I am with this team. Number 5, I have A&M, and A&M fans are probably going to get angry at me, but the schedule has been soft. They've pulled out some squeakers. They didn't look great versus Mississippi State. And yes, do I think Mississippi State has gotten better? Yes, but you should still beat them on the road by more. And they were consistently in that game, Mississippi State was. You also had a struggle fest with Arkansas where the offense didn't look great. You had a struggle fest with Notre Dame, who I don't really think is that good. You had a struggle versus multiple teams I just don't think are that good. And I don't know what to think of this team. They have a very easy schedule. We'll see what happens. Could they be in the SEC championship game? Absolutely, they could. It could come down to that last week of the season versus my Texas Longhorns. So we will see. Number 4, I have Tennessee. Great defense, spectacular defense. But the quarterback position, he did make some throws yesterday that he hadn't been making, so that's good. But he's going to have to do that consistently for me to believe in this team. So we'll see what happens with them. But defensively, they are elite. Running back, they are elite. Offensive line, shaky. Quarterback, shaky. We'll see what happens. In a down year in college football, would it surprise me if they ended up being a Final Four team? No. Would it shock me if they missed the playoffs? No. I don't know what to make of this team. Number 3 is LSU. And I'm going to have to eat crow at the end of the year if LSU makes the playoffs because I said they're a 9-3 team. They weren't going to make the playoffs. Their defense was going to suck. And I was right about that early on. They sucked at the beginning of the year just like they did last year. They have gotten much better. Whit Weeks is an upgrade from Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins is a good athlete. Great athlete. I take that back. He's a great athlete. Not a good football player. And they were trying to build this defense around him, and it had not worked. And it sucks for him, for me saying that, but it didn't work. LSU has been better without him, and if they continue to progress like that and the offense continues to click, this team could make the SEC championship game. They have to win this week versus A&M. Otherwise, I do think they get eliminated from that because I don't think Georgia's going to lose any other SEC games. And if they do, it'd be to Tennessee, and that means Tennessee would be in the SEC championship game. And I also think Texas will win out until they play A&M. So we'll see there. Number 2, I do have Texas. Terrible performance from my team last night on the offensive side of the ball. And it's funny, going into the week, everyone's like, well, Texas hasn't played a good offense. I don't know about the defense. Defense showed up, guys. Defense was phenomenal. The longest drive Georgia had in the first half was 23 yards. The longest they had all game was 89 yards, I believe, which was a spectacular drive. But it took a long third down conversion in a trick play to do that. They could not just line up and play one-on-one versus Texas defensively. They could offensively versus our offense. They dominated the line of scrimmage. That was the worst played game from offensive quarterback combo in a very long time, probably since 2022 TCU, who also made the college football playoff. Terrible game, 7 sacks allowed, multiple pressures, I believe over 10 tackles for loss. Just a bad game overall from the Texas Longhorns on the offensive side of the ball. I thought Sark honestly didn't prepare Quinn Ewers enough going into this game of just trying to get him into rhythm. He wanted to take shots early, and it didn't get Quinn into rhythm, and you saw that later in the game. Quinn got scared in the pocket, did not move in the pocket well, and the offensive line did not protect him well enough. So just a bad combination. And then that leads to my number 1 team, the Georgia Bulldogs. Are they flawed offensively? Yes, this isn't a great offensive team. But if that defense shows up week in and week out, this is the best team in the country. That's a big if, though, because they've only done it 1 week. And I don't know if they just played up above their standard or this is what's a sign to come. If it's a sign to come, this team can, again, win the national championship. If it's just above their standard, they'll make the playoff. They'll probably end up being a Final Four team, but they're not going to win a national championship. There's questions about every team right now, and I think we're just back to the beginning of the season. I thought Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon were the 4 best teams. I still think Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, and Oregon are the 4 best teams. That's where I'm at. This was another edition of the SEC Power Rankings. I really appreciate you guys being here. Hit that like button. Subscribe down below. Thank you guys very much.